I'm on my way to interview the owner of an interesting car. I'm on my way to have a chat with Bernard about his Mitsubishi Evo 2 rally car. I'm here talking to Bernard about this wonderful Mitsubishi Evo 2. Before we talk about the Evo, tell me a bit about previous rally cars.
Jim, so I've had a few previous rally cars. I owned a Datsun 1600 that Kevin Mason built, that Peter Houghton now owns. I owned that car twice, and it was probably my favourite of all the rally cars I owned. If I could have it back, I would. It won a car club championship for MG Car Club, so it did really, really well. It was really well built. I had a PRC Datsun 1600 I bought from Kevin Robin and had quite a bit of success with it too. It was a good fun car, had an option 1 gearbox that made it. The other car I really liked owning was a car I bought from Dean McClarty that was built by Michael Bramble, and that was a Mazda RX-2. It was a phenomenal car, and we, Lyndall Drake and I, we came third in the AMSAG series in 1999, and we clean swept the class in the car, and it was a fun car to drive. Unfortunately, it's no longer with us. It hit a big post, and it's dead.
Now, how long have you had this one?
So I purchased this vehicle in August 1999.
1999.
1999.
You've had it a long time then.
I have. I first saw it in about 2000, first saw it in about probably about 94 or 5 at the Rally of Canberra. When the Rally of Canberra was Asia Pacific event, it was a big time event. And I saw it and just loved the way it was built. And it was actually built with 3 others at a place in Victoria called Racetech Engineering. And basically they put 4 of them together, and this was the 4th, and by all accounts it was the one that went together the best, which you'd expect, I suppose, because it was the 4th one they did. The reason they were all built was, at the time, the Japanese market, there was a lot of guys coming over to Australia and hiring rally cars to run in Australian rallies. And what they did was they'd supply the car, service crew, even a navigator if he wanted one, and even all the parts to go with the service crew. So they had this massive organisation. But unfortunately, the Japanese market, as we all know, had a few problems. In the early mid-90s, the guys stopped coming. The business that built the cars went broke. And the fellow that ended up owning this car, Jed Beckton, owned the car because the business owed him some money. And initially Marty drove the car, Marty Beckton, and he actually drove it in the Rally of Canberra to 3rd outright and 1st Group N car. So the car's got some real credible competition history. That was in around 94, 95. Jed then kept it. They did end up hiring it to a Japanese guy for Rally Australia of 1996, and in fact the 1996 scrutineering label is still on the roll cage as a Group N car. The Japanese guy brought his own computer whiz with him. It did one lap of Langley Park and blew the engine. Obviously they wound it up a bit too much. So it did that. It then went back into Jed's shed. They rebuilt it. The plan was to keep it for Marty's younger brother to run. And then Marty went to Europe and sent a note back and said basically, no, 2-wheel drive, you've got to go front-wheel drive, that's where rallying's going. So the car came up for sale, and it was advertised then as the best Group N Evo 2 in the country. I have no doubt it was. A very good mate of mine, Tim Batten, and I went with a trailer to Wodonga, where Jed lived. Tim and I went for a drive in it. Tim just said, you've got to own this, it is a really good car. But not only did I buy the car, it came with 16 composite wheels. It came with a spare turbocharger, which actually will bolt into the car because the rules at that stage said you must carry the turbo in the car.
Right.
So there's actually a brace in the car where the turbo bolts to. So it came with that, came with a myriad, probably came with up to, I don't know, $5,000 worth of parts. Paid a lot of money for the car at the time, but in my opinion, it's probably now the best Evo 2, maybe not just in Australia, but possibly in Southeast Asia.
Well, you don't see Evo 2s around very much at all. It's, all the later ones is what you see.
Of course, and what we were talking about earlier, unfortunately, old race cars tend to have a bit of heritage and they tend to get kept by people.
Yeah.
Old rally cars just, unfortunately, get turned into scrap
Yes.
or get cut up.
Yeah.
The other three siblings, I don't really know a lot about what happened to them. The fellow that built the car actually just recently repaired its gearbox. So my car's gearbox, that is.
Yeah,
and he didn't even know. He was surprised to hear this one was still around.
Right.
He wanted to buy it from me, but I told him how much I wanted for it, and he sort of changed his mind fairly quickly.
So these are a 2-litre, 4-cylinder
turbo. So they're a 2-litre engine, turbocharged. Of course. This one still runs the restrictor that Group N demanded, which I think was a 34mm restrictor in it. The restrictor's still in there, and it's even still got the cams tag to say it's still in the turbo. Basically, I've just run the car absolutely standard as it came to me from the time I bought it in 1999. Sort of competition and history it's had. A lot of car club events. Held the lap record at Nabiac Autocross Circuit for about 5 or 6 years. The car was never beaten at Nabiac Autocross Circuit between 2001 and 2005. And that was up against some pretty solid opposition at the time as well, in 4-wheel drive cars. It's not like we just went up there and beat a whole lot of 2-wheel drives. There was up to 6 or 7 4-wheel drives running at the same time. It's a great little car. It's been phenomenally reliable for me. As I said, the only thing I've had done was a bit of a gearbox rebuild, and that happened in the last 6 months.
Right. Now, 4-wheel drive cars, turbocharged cars, like front-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, and how much do you have to adapt to driving these?
I found this car really easy to adapt to on the gravel. It is, in a way, it's set up in a way that it's probably a bit more taily. So therefore it was easy for me to do, because what you do is you just change the tension in the limited slip diffs, and after a bit of playing with it, essentially it's nice for me on the gravel now. I really enjoy driving on the gravel, and it doesn't drive a lot different to say a rear wheel drive car, in as much as you can break it into a slide fairly easily. And it's got an enormous amount of torque. That's the wonderful thing about it.
Well, the turbocharging would be the second factor besides the 4-wheel drive in terms of no power and then power.
And look, again, because it's a Group N car, the power doesn't come on in a rush. The power comes on very early in the torque band. Probably you can make it go from about 2,500 all the way through to 6,000 RPM, and you don't have to rev it to death to get the best out of it either. You just rev it to about 5.5, 6, plug another gear in, and because of its gearing and because of its Group N nature, and because probably the Rally Art computer in it helps, it is a very, very drivable motor car.
Right. Because from watching people, Subarus particularly, like out of the wild or something, there seems to be a certain knack to driving them. They do seem to go straight ahead a bit.
They do, and I mean at the end of the day, again, I've run this at a wobber. I've had a second outright at a wobber in this car, again against some fairly fancied opposition like Group A type cars and things like that with a lot more power, but the drivability of this little car makes me look good, I've got to say. It always has made me look good. For a number of years the car did Zero, the state series, particularly Graham Rosa events, so I think for about 6 years in a row we went and zeroed both the 2GO and the Bega Valley Rally when Graham Rosa was running them. And again, I drove the car to the event. It's probably the only rally car in Australia with a cruise control. Because I drive it. Anywhere I go, I take it. Doesn't go on a trailer. I drive the car. That's whether it's a competition event, car club event, or I'm driving to Bega, for instance. I've driven it to Bega and back, and zeroed the rally as well.
Being zero car, I watch some YouTube videos sometimes, particularly the Scandinavians, and the zero car comes through as if he's completing the absolute flat limit. And you think, this might be a zero car, you know?
Yeah, look, one of the wonderful things about being a zero car driver is that you can choose when to have a go and choose not to.
Yeah.
And that's what I liked about it. I mean, I didn't want to run this car competitively because it's just such a great example of what it is.
It is.
It would have very easily been damaged or, you know, suffered some fatigue and things like that. But the nice thing about being a zero car driver is that when you want to have a bit of a go, you can.
Yeah.
And then when you've got a bit of a rougher section or you don't really want to give the car a hard time over a particular piece of road, you can just back off that 10, 15%.
Yeah.
And, you know, you still get the job done. I've never been caught by anybody in the zero car job.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you still enjoy the drive without necessarily having the pressure of competition or the pressure of having to drive the car over a terrain that you don't feel comfortable doing.
Well, somewhat embarrassingly, I've been caught by somebody. I was caught by a spectator in my very first rally, driving a Mini 850.
Well, maybe that's not such an embarrassment at all, depending on what they were driving. Yeah, they might have been driving something a bit more than a Mini 850.
Holden Kingswood.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Yes.
Very embarrassing it was, yeah. Yeah. Well, you think this is like going to become a family heirloom? It'll sit in the shed forever, or?
Absolutely. I mean, it's probably not as well loved by me as the Liberty, I'd have to say. I mean, the Liberty is my absolute, I love that car. It's just been the best car I've ever owned, quite frankly, and it's obviously the amount of Ks it's done. But hey, this would probably run a close second, but I've got to say, I've got a fair fleet of cars in the shed. Everybody knows that, I think. I love every single one of them for the job they do at the time they do it.
Yeah.
So basically, Madeline will use a Liberty in a touring road event that's got a bit of gravel, but it's in the middle of summer, it's quite hot, because this isn't air conditioned.
Yeah.
But then in the middle of winter, we'll run this car on anything that we see that's over those winter months.
Probably got a natural heater, is it?
Yeah, it does have a bit of a natural heater in it, and the nice thing about it is that if we've got a gravel event, for instance, the Des West Winter Classic, we often run this car in the Des West Winter Classic.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much for having a look at this, and thank you very much.
Thanks, no trouble.
I'm Craig McMillard. Bye for now.